Hello, everyone, and welcome on our third day of Build Stuff Conference. And the first speaker for today is Amber, who is an award-winning international business person, coach, and the speaker. Today, Amber is the founder of the Pathway Group, and she works with international companies. And today's session is called The Power of Performance. So please feel free to ask the questions on our Pine Events app. And Amber, the performance is yours.
All right, thank you so much for having me today. Hello, everyone. So glad to be here. We're going to be using the chat function quite a bit today. So I want to get a pulse on how you're feeling. I know it's the first session back. So tell me, how are you feeling today? I know we've gone over a lot of information. Are you overwhelmed? Are you energized? Are you tired? Are you hungry? How are you feeling today? Go ahead and give me some feedback in the chat. Let me know how you're doing. All right, I'm seeing a little bit in the chat. Some of you might be feeling rejuvenated. All right, I'm seeing a little bit in the chat. Give you a couple more seconds. Okay, for that use of the chat, I am going to go ahead and give you a 4 out of 10 on how you're using the chat now. All right, give you a 4 out of 10. I'll admit that's okay. You're here, but I think we can do a little bit better. All right, we got a 4 out of 10. Let's see if we can do a little bit better. So let me give you a different prompt on how to use using the chat here. Tell me, what are some of the biggest challenges that you face whenever you are giving performance feedback? What are some of the biggest challenges that you face whenever you're giving performance feedback? Go ahead and put in the chat. If you're watching on site, then you can go ahead and pull out your phone and give some answers in the chat. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're facing whenever you are giving performance feedback? For some people, it could be how to give performance feedback. It could be how to have tough conversations. Some may ask how to give feedback in a way that it'll be best received. All right, see a couple of answers here in the chat, being a little bit better in the chat function. All right, here's what I'm going to do this time. In our first way that I gave you feedback, I used the Likert model. So I gave you a 4 out of 10. Now, that's not a lot of information on how to improve and how we're using the chat. This time, I'm going to use a checkbox model. So here is the feedback that I'm going to give. See, I believe that the feedback was too slow in how we were using the chat. It is not specific. And I'm looking for a quantity. Looking for a specific quantity. All right, so this is more of a checkbox system. All right, so it's too slow, it's not specific, and it does not meet the quantity that I'm looking for. So now you have a little bit more feedback on how to use these chat functions. So let me ask you a different question. What is something that you would like to learn from today? What's something that you would like to learn from today, from this session right here? It could be how to better receive performance feedback, how to know if you're giving feedback in a timely manner. All right, I'm looking in the chat. All right. Here's what I'm going to do for this round of feedback. I'm continuously looking at the chat. I'm going to use a combination of a Likert scale and a comment section. So rather than a checkbox, I'm going to go ahead and use a comment section. So let's see here. I'm going to use letter A. All right, so here you go. I would like, I'm going to give you a 7 out of 10 on this one. So we've actually improved. We have actually improved in our performance feedback. But for my last question, I'm going to ask you to respond in 3 words. And I'm going to ask you to respond in 3 words. I want your answers to only begin with the letter A. Only begin with the letter A. And I'm only going to give you 10 seconds. Now, this is significantly more feedback on how to improve and how we're using the chat than simply a 4 out of 10. So, ready for your last question? Here we go. What is a key to great performance feedback? You know right now. What's a key to great performance feedback that you know right now? Is it authentic? Is it action focused? Is it, actionable? All right, I'm only gonna give you a couple more seconds. 3, 2, oh, all right, I'm seeing some good words here. Fantastic. 2, 1, fantastic. Well done, everyone. So for that final round, I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you a 10 out of 10. Woo! You know, we're only 10 minutes into this presentation, and we've already been able to improve the way that we are performing based on the feedback that we were given. As stated before, my name is Amber Vanderburg, and many years ago, I had the opportunity to become the only American, the only female, and the only blonde academy football coach or soccer coach for the Adidas Game Day Academy and Paris Saint-Germain PSG Academy in Bangalore, India, to coach widely the first generation of athletes on elite and a grassroots level. I coached about a dozen teams, mostly boys, with a few girls, ages 6 to about 16. And as I realized that our players would often come to sessions and they would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for instruction. And our players would come to our sessions and they would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for direction. And they would stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for further feedback. And while this may be an efficient way to teach a skill, how do you think that worked in a game scenario? Not very well. In fact, it was a disaster. Oftentimes, our players within the course of a match would kick the ball perfectly, exactly the way that we taught them. And then before the play was even over, they turned to the sideline to the coach for further direction and feedback. See, they had mastered the task, but they didn't quite understand how it applied to the overall game scenario. While it might be easy to hear this story and think of it as an international academy in sports with kids, how often do we go to work, receive a task, and wait for instruction? See, we had to transform our academy from lines and laps and lectures to one of creativity and collaboration and captainship. And it brings me to a good point. In order to give great performance feedback, we must first create an environment for great performance. And so the way that we did that was to truly stop. Again, we truly stopped. We stopped over commanding the how, and we started clearly communicating the what and the why. In application, it looked a little something like this. Rather than stand in a line, kick a ball, wait for instruction, we provided challenges. So from here, kick the ball to knock down those 3 cones. Because in order to do that, you're going to have to kick with power and precision. And in a game scenario, whenever you pass, whenever you kick, whenever you shoot, you're also going to have to kick with power and precision. From this, I saw some of the most heated debates I'd ever seen amongst 7-year-olds, trying to decide if the best way to kick the ball was with the infoot or with the laces. In reality, both ways were right. And so our teams were able to expand their toolbox of resources by the way that we were asking meaningful questions and setting up challenges. And so We did that by first creating an environment for great performance, by clearly communicating our what and our why, and then allowing opportunities for ownership within the how. These opportunities for ownership within the how are your opportunities to find uniquely better ways of work. It's your opportunity to a competitive advantage within the team. It's your opportunity to provide ownership for your organization. These opportunities for ownership can lie specifically within 4 major areas. We found that there were some aspects of the game and aspects of football that we couldn't necessarily change, but there were some areas of the game that offered specific opportunities for ownership. And that was within our processes, our methods, our projects, and our roles. Now, within your team, I am going to challenge you to set expectations, clearly communicating your what and your why. So there's a few different ways that we can do this. One way that you can do this is by an activity that we're going to do right now. So I want everyone, whether you are online or on site, to pull out a piece of paper. And we're going to start with a challenge. Set expectations within our team. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to pull out a piece of paper, and I want you to put it landscape-wise like this. Put it landscape-wise like this. And I want you to draw one line vertically like this. Sorry, one line horizontally like this. And then draw 3 lines vertically. So you should have 8 boxes. And this is what I want you to do. I want you to draw. That's right, I said draw. I want you to draw a performance expectation of your team. I want you to draw a performance expectation of your team. Maybe you're working on a project right now. What are the performance expectations of your team dynamic right now within your project? I'll give you an example. Within our team, so the Pathways Group is a multinational organization. We have people really all over the world, and we work with organizations and with clients all over the world. And so one thing that's really important for us is that whenever we have a team meeting, there is an expectation that we come to meetings on time. Why? Because there are some people on our team that they may be getting up very late in order to attend this meeting. Some may be getting up very early. And so coming 15, 20, 30 minutes late, that is not going to be as respectful for our team members that are getting up late, getting up early. And we want to make sure that we are efficient in the way that we are using our time within our collaborative meetings. And so actually coming to our meetings on time, that's an expectation that we have. Here's what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to give you 20 seconds per box. That's right, 20 seconds per box for you to draw a performance expectation. So I want you to draw on the first box, and at the end of 20 seconds, I'll say the word next. At that time, you will immediately move into the next box and draw a different performance expectation. Okay, are you ready? All right. On your mark. Hold on, I'm not ready. I have to get my clock ready. This is going to take about 2.5, 3 minutes. All right, on your mark, get set, go. And I'm going to play some mood music for you. All right, move on to that next box. All right, you're on to that next box. This is going to go fast. All right, you're on to that next box. All right, now you're on to that next box. This is where it might start getting a little bit more difficult. Keep on going. All right, you're on to that next box. Keep it going. All right, now you're on to that next box. All right, that last box. Almost there. All right, there you go. Keep it going. Next one. All right, next one. Three, two, one, and stop. All right, give me some feedback on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being 5 being, Amber, that was super difficult. That was, don't ever make me do that again. 1 being, Amber, that was really easy. That was really easy. I could have come up with 3 more expectations, 4 more expectations. Give me some feedback on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being that was super, super difficult. 1 being that was really, really easy. Where do you lie in that activity? Took only a few minutes. All right, I'm seeing things from all over. Yeah, from 1 to 5 is what I'm seeing. All right, absolutely. I love it. You know, this activity I like because it really only takes a couple of minutes. And you can really get a good idea of the expectations within your team. So within your team, I encourage you to look at this, look at these expectations. So I'll actually do this activity within my team. And the goal is to have about 5 or more similar areas of expectations. If I'm working with my team, especially if we're working on a project, let's say we're working on a larger project, and we only have 1 or 2 areas of similarity within our performance expectations, then there is likely to be some sort of lack of clarity and an opportunity for disconnect as we are moving forward. And so we only have a couple areas of continuity, and that's a really good opportunity for you to be proactive and have a conversation. The goal is to have about 5 or more areas of similarity. So if you have 5 or more, that means you're in the right direction. Just need to refine a bit. All right, just need to refine a bit. I have worked with some teams, and really this conversation we'll have whenever we are about to begin a project or whenever we have new team members come on board. And I'll do it with the entirety of the team to set those performance expectations. You see, Uncommunicated expectations oftentimes lead to, let me rephrase that, uncommunicated expectations will lead to unmet expectations, performance expectations. People have to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. So I encourage you, you can do this activity within your team, but I encourage you to look at what you've drawn right now. Look at what you've drawn right now. And I want you to ask, does your team know what these expectations are? Do they know that this is an expectation on the team? And then I want you to ask one step further. Do they know why that is a performance expectation on the team? Do they know why that is an expectation? Is there an expectation to come to meetings on time just because Amber wants meetings to start on time? No, it's because it shows respect for people that are in different time zones within our team. It's a sign of respect for people within the team. Whenever you are giving performance feedback, we must begin by creating an environment for great performance. And from there, we can have a proactive conversation. Now, a proactive conversation is a tool that I use whenever I'm working with a new team, whenever I'm starting a new project, whenever we have new team members come on board, whenever I'm working with a new client or a new customer. And a proactive conversation is a quick, about 5 to 7 minute conversation. And it goes like this. At some point in our working relationship, there's probably going to be frustration. At some point in our working relationship, there may be a miscommunication, there may be tension, there may be heat. And so while the emotions are low now, let us proactively discuss how we're going to handle that situation whenever it inevitably arises. Many times, especially if you're working with a multinational team, some team members may be hesitant to bring up unmet performance expectations because they don't want to admit that a problem exists. They don't want to admit that a problem exists. But by having a proactive conversation, you're able to be proactive and discuss the challenges in giving that feedback. The other thing that you do is you create a game plan. One of the biggest areas of anxiety that can come around giving performance feedback is fear that the other person may not know what person may not know how the conversation is going to go. They may not know what the game plan is. And so by having a proactive conversation, you are creating a game plan. This game plan is going to be more than if there is a challenge, bring it up. I want you to specifically outline a framework of what that conversation is going to look like for your team. Now, I'll admit, this is an uncomfortable conversation at the beginning, but the emotions are low. There is not that tension yet, and it saves from a very uncomfortable conversation later on down the road. And it really does help us to combat against one of the greatest barriers to giving great performance feedback, and that is the fundamental attribution error. Now, the fundamental attribution error is really just a fancy way of saying that too often times we judge other people by their actions and by their behaviors while we judge ourselves by our intentions. We see this all the time whenever we're working with other developers, right? Someone might make a mistake in the way that they are writing the code. They might make a mistake in the way that they're developing the product, and we can say, why would they do that? What's going on, right? There might be a frustration amongst the action that is taken. But if we make the same mistake, we look at what we were intending to do. We see this example whenever we're driving on the road. Somebody may cut us off in traffic, and we might look and say, oh my goodness, they are a terrible driver. We need to take their keys and get them off the road. But if we accidentally cut somebody off in traffic, we didn't intend to cut somebody off. We didn't see that the lane change was coming. We didn't realize that we needed to be in a different lane. We didn't intend to cut somebody off. And so we judge other people by their actions while we judge ourselves by our intentions. I was working with one team several months ago, and the team members came and they said, Ember, there is a person on our team. Whenever he speaks, he is abrupt. People dreaded this person coming to meetings. They said, Ember, he is abrupt. He is abrasive. Some even said malicious. And so we kept the fundamental attribution error in mind. And we asked the question, what is your intention whenever you are speaking at meetings? What is your intention whenever you're speaking at meetings? And we found that the gentleman was actually intending to be passionate. He was intending to be persuasive. And so we recognized that there was actually a knowledge gap between the intended behavior and the perceived behavior. And by asking the question about the intention first, we were able to enter into more of a coaching dynamic to bring the two closer together. We began the conversation by seeking understanding, which is the first model, the first aspect of the feedback model that you should engage in. We're going to first by seeking understanding. We're going to first begin by seeking understanding within our feedback. From there, we can move into the purpose of our feedback. Now, there's actually three major purposes to providing feedback. And so we're going to go through each one, and I'm going to show you a few alterations that you can make within the model, depending on the purpose of your feedback. So the first purpose of performance feedback is to encourage desired behavior. So I want you to ask yourself whenever you are giving your performance feedback, what is my purpose? What does success look like at the end of this conversation? And if the goal is to encourage desired performance, then the person should know specifically what performance should be repeated. As a soccer coach or as a football coach, I would oftentimes hear other coaches come up and they would say, hey, good job. Well done. Keep up the good work. And while this may sound nice, it's not specific enough for the person to know exactly what they did well. What can they repeat in the future that is going to warrant more encouraging feedback? If you're speaking specifically about your product, what specifically is going well? Here, you're going to do a bit of value engineering. And so here is the model I want you to give. What specific behavior, action, or attitude do you want repeated? What did you observe? And why was that powerful? What was the impact? What do you want repeated? And why do you want it repeated? Here, the person knows exactly what to do and why that was important. I'll give you an example. There was a person on our team a few months ago that, actually about a month ago, that they put together a report. They were doing some reporting, and they put together a report that was very well organized. It was detail-oriented, and it was completed in a timely manner. And because she did that, we were able to gather, or I was able to look at the information and make an informed decision on how to move forward. And so I sent the team member a message. I said, hey, thank you so much for creating a report that was detail-oriented, well organized, and completed in a timely manner. Because you did that, we were able to make an informed decision in a timely manner on how to move forward. Now, the person knows specifically what feedback or what action to repeat in the future. Vague performance feedback will result in vague performance improvement. Ambiguous feedback will result in ambiguous improvement. We must be specific to be strategic. So here we're going to use this what, why model. You can also switch around and do why, what. The point is that you're going to hit both of these factors at the same time. The person knows specifically what actions can be repeated and why that is important. The second purpose of performance feedback is to coach or build upon performance. So whenever you are coaching, you are going to build upon the performance that currently exists. Here, you're going to use this what, why model twice. You're going to use this what, why model twice. Here's what I mean. I apologize. Here's what I mean. I want you to share what action that you observed and why that was impactful, right? So why was that powerful? Then we're going to go into a second layer and say what could be done better in the future and what would be an alternative impact from the alternative action. Now, especially if you're in a coaching situation, this can be more of a question rather than a statement. So whenever I was giving encouraging feedback, that was more of a statement. It was more of a specific compliment. Whereas here, I'm going to state, I may state, hey, you did this well, and this was the impact. What are some things that we could have done better? This could be more within your retrospective. It could be more in your guiding questions. The point is that you're going to get to an improvement in your alternative action and identifying the alternative impact within your coaching. You are also going to use the same model in the third purpose of feedback, and that is to correct undesired behavior. Now we're going to stay here for just a minute because I know that this could be the most challenging, is to give corrective feedback. Now, in corrective feedback, the goal is to correct undesired behavior. So the person, so the goal is to correct undesired actions, attitudes, and behaviors. So in the same moment here, we're going to use this what, why model twice, right? We're going to use what, why twice. So what was the action, attitude, or behavior that you observed? And why was that not effective, right? Or why was that undesired, right? So we're going to get into the actual action. Why was that ineffective? And then again, this can be both a question or a statement, depending on the nature of the topic and the context. But I want you to identify an alternative action and why that would be more powerful. Let's say that the individual completed the project, completed the report, but it had a lot of errors in it. It was not completed in a timely manner, and it was ill-organized. Here, we're going to bring up the undesired action and the impact. Then we're going to ask, what can we do differently? How can we organize the report a little bit better? What can we do to make sure that the report is done in a timely manner? And what would be the alternative impact if we had our reports in on time? All right. So this is something, again, that you can use as a model to give both encouraging, coaching, and corrective feedback. You can use it as a question or in a statement. With encouraging feedback, we're going to go one layer of what, why. With coaching and corrective feedback, we're going to go 2 layers of your what, why. So first seek understanding and then go into the purpose of your feedback. Now, up until this point, we focused a lot on crafting the message of your feedback. But there's more to giving feedback than just crafting the perfect message. You know, about a year ago, I found a love letter in my great grandmother. So it was written in the early 1900s, 1908. And the love letter read this: fall off the roof, fall down the cellar. but don't fall in love with another feller. You know, it brings up a good question. What makes love letters so powerful? There's a few different things. You see, love letters are written with intentionality. It's something tangible that you can hold. There's powerful messages that love letters can contain. But there's something else that makes love letters so powerful. And that is that there is a span of time between each correspondence for emotion to build. There is a span of time between each feedback loop. These are longer feedback loops for emotion to build, for you to ponder on the words. Now, this is really desired whenever you are writing a love letter. It is not as desired whenever you are sending an email about somebody's performance. See, many times we spend a lot of time crafting the right message, but too often we forget to consider the correct method of delivery. So, whenever considering the correct method of delivery for your message, I encourage you to look at the pace of the feedback loop. All right. So if you are in a situation that has lower feedback loops, like a memo, a text, a email, then you have another situation that you might be using faster feedback loops. That's going to be in person, a phone call, a video chat. There are three things that you should consider. The first, what is the emotional nature of your message? Is it high emotion? Is it low emotion? If it's high emotion, you need to be in a situation with faster feedback loops. Lower emotion, you can be in slower feedback loops. What is the complexity? High complexity should be in faster feedback loops. If it is of low complexity, go ahead and send that email. We actually have a conversation within our team, and we've decided that if we know it's going to take more than 8 emails to solve a problem, we'll just go ahead and pick up the phone or alter our communication method. Because especially with the complexity, something that could be solved in a 5-10 minute call instead is drug out over the whole day or multiple days. That's more time and energy that I'm going to have to spend focused on this problem that could have been solved through an altered method of communication. And then last thing I'm going to consider is the person. So there are some people that may prefer, or it might be better, to have a face-to-face conversation or a virtual face-to-face conversation. Whenever you're giving your performance feedback, don't forget to consider the method of delivery. Too often times we spend a lot of time focusing on the performance message. Too often the method is forgotten. Which brings me to, I'm going to go into my next question, which is, how often should we be giving feedback? How often should we be giving feedback? Recent studies have shown that the preference for feedback, it's on 2 different layers. You have formal feedback and you have informal feedback. So with your formal feedback, that's going to be more of a written, go in your file, sit down type of feedback. This is stuff that could be things such as an annual review. It's going to follow a specific format. Those should be done either quarterly or bi-monthly. That's going to be a good pace of change. We should not be discussing something in November, an action, attitude, or behavior that happened in February. All right, so this formal feedback should be happening either quarterly or bi-monthly. So every 2 to 3 months. That's because there is a span of time for the person to receive the feedback, digest the feedback, come up with a game plan on how to change, implement that change, and for the change to be noticed. It's a lot of things that need to happen. So usually it takes a couple of months for that whole process to happen. And so then by the time that you're a couple months in, then it's time to give that formal feedback again. So you're looking at either quarterly or bi-monthly. In this situation, the annual review could still exist. I'm not saying that we have to totally get rid of the annual review, I'm saying that we should reimagine it. Here, the annual review is simply that, a review. And so what you're doing is that annual review is really a summation of all of the formal feedback that you have been giving throughout the session or throughout the year. That's for formal feedback. For informal feedback, studies have shown that preferences are about 3 times a week. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever I saw that stat, I was a little bit surprised. That could be a lot of feedback within your team. Until I really started to think about it. This is any sort of feedback conversation that you're having with your team. So it could be a quick message. So I actually messaged my team earlier this morning and just sent a quick message and said, hey, I noticed that you did this. This was the impact. Keep it up, right? That was a quick, it was 2 sentences. It was someone from our marketing team, and they had reimagined some of our marketing material. They made it more interactive, more fun. And the result of that is that our audience was engaging more in our material. So do more of that. That was 2 sentences. 3 times a week is what most people are preferring. That's the aim for the informal feedback. Sometimes this will also include check-ins, especially if you're working in a remote team. You could be doing a quick check-in with your team as well. There's this idea that has to be once a week, but I understand if you're managing a team of 50 people, 60 people, then having a check-in, even for 15, 20 minutes with everybody on your team every single week, that can be a little overwhelming and somewhat unrealistic. And so you can actually take that and you can split it. So I split that up within my team. I meet with half the team one week and then the other half of the team the other week. That's still a good pace in which you are having conversation, getting a check on the pulse. And of course, the team can always come and have further conversation as needed. And I do have the further follow-up conversations with individuals that are needing a little bit further conversation. So find some freedom in that. If you are feeling overwhelmed, even let's say you don't have 50 people, let's say you even have 10 people. So I might meet with 5 one week and then 5 the next week. So it's not required, but it is something to consider as you are giving that feedback. And again, as you're meeting with your team and doing that pulse check, you're going to use that what and why, So we've gone through a couple action steps here. We're going to first understand, right? We're going to seek understanding, keeping the fundamental attribution error in mind. We're going to use the what-why model, depending on the purpose of our performance feedback. And then next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the action step. This part is many times overlooked. We actually give the feedback, but then we don't create an action step for accountability. All right, so here we can create that action step, and then we're going to follow up. Create a situation in which we can follow up. Here we are actually not only giving feedback, but we are creating an environment where our performance feedback will have some sort of an accountability, and we can be put in a situation to have continuous feedback loops. Now I only have about a minute left, so I want to leave you with a quick story. A few years ago, whenever I was coaching football, I had a young lad named Achinthia. Now, Achinthia was 6 years old, and he was so excited for his first day of football. He actually came running out onto the field, and he began yelling, "Pass, pass, pass!" And I noticed that Achinthia was yelling pass even whenever the other team had the ball. And he was yelling pass whenever he was miles away from the action. And he was yelling pass whenever he had the ball. So then he was running with the ball going, pass, pass, pass. And so I looked at Achinthia and I said, "Achinthia, why are you yelling pass?" And he looked up at me and he said, "Miss Ember, ma'am, I do not know what it means. I only know it is a football word." Sometimes I hear organizations sound a little bit like my friend Achinthia. Yelling leadership, communication, performance, feedback, we got this, because we know that these are big words that can lead to big goals. If we're in the wrong position, if we're miles away from the action, or even if we have the ball and we don't know which direction we're going, then saying these words are not only ineffective, but they're actually detrimental to our overall communication. But if we first take the time to clearly communicate our performance expectations, and then we take the time to seek understanding, to give purposeful, specific, and strategic performance feedback with action steps and follow-ups, then we'll be in a position to yell pass, to receive the ball, to move forward, and to score really big goals within our organization. I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to join today. I know that we're just getting started for today. So thank you so much for having me. I would love to answer any questions. I'll be available for any questions, and I'd love to connect as well. So please feel free to connect with me. I'm the only Amber Vanderburg on any of the social media sites. So love to connect for further questions.
I would like to say really thank you, Amber, for such a practical session you gave. And we will wait for the questions in the Zoom link that we posted, and we will be right back with our program.